If you're watching this right now, it's not an accident. Something deep inside you knows you're different, that you're here for something bigger than yourself, and I'm about to prove it to you in the next minutes. Before we dive in, subscribe to Attraction Magnet right now, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me which sign resonates with you the most, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you see yourself forever. You've always felt like you don't belong here, like you're playing a game everyone else understands, but you never got the rule book for. That's not a flaw, that's a sign. The chosen ones throughout history, from Joan of Arc to Nikola Tesla, from Buddha to Martin Luther King Jr., they all felt this same inexplicable sense of being different. They were ridiculed, dismissed, even persecuted, but they changed the world. And you might be one of them. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your life has been so different, so challenging, and why that's actually your greatest gift. Let me tell you something that most spiritual teachers won't admit. Being chosen isn't glamorous. It's not about feeling special or superior. It's about carrying a burden that most people can't even comprehend. It's about walking through fire so others don't have to. It's about being broken down completely, so you can be rebuilt as something stronger, wiser, more compassionate. If your life has been harder than it should be, if you've suffered more than seems fair, stay till the end, because I'm going to show you why. The universe doesn't choose the qualified, it qualifies the chosen. Think about that for a moment. You weren't selected because you had it easy or because you were born with advantages. You were chosen because your soul agreed to take on challenges that would forge you into a beacon of light for others. And I know that sounds heavy, maybe even overwhelming, but stick with me, because understanding these 9 signs will finally make everything click into place. Sign number 1. You cannot be fake. Here's something you need to understand about yourself. You physically cannot pretend to be something you're not. While everyone around you is wearing masks, playing politics, saying things they don't mean, you feel like you're choking when you try to do the same. This isn't weakness, this is purity. Your soul is so aligned with truth that dishonesty creates an actual physical discomfort in your body. Have you ever been in a situation where you were supposed to go along with a lie, maybe at work or with family, and you felt sick to your stomach? That's not anxiety. That's your higher self rejecting the false reality being presented. The ancient Greek philosopher Diogenes walked around Athens with a lantern in broad daylight, claiming he was searching for an honest man. When asked why he did this, he said he wanted to show how rare authenticity had become. You are that rare, honest person Diogenes was looking for. In a world drowning in fakeness, in Instagram filters and corporate doublespeak and social media personas, you stand out like a sore thumb because you refuse to play the game. And let me ask you this, how many times have people called you too honest, too direct, too real? How many times have you been told you need to learn to play the game better? But here's what's fascinating. You also have what I call the authenticity radar. You can spot a fake person from across the room. It's like you have a 6th sense for detecting when someone is performing rather than being. This makes you incredibly uncomfortable around certain types of people. The social climbers who only care about status and money, they make your skin crawl. The gossips who tear others down to feel better about themselves, you can't stand being around them. The bullies and manipulators who use others for their own gain, you see right through their tactics. Why is this? Because your frequency is different. You operate on a wavelength of authenticity, and when you encounter someone vibrating at the frequency of deception, there's a natural repulsion. Scientists have actually studied this phenomenon. Research from the University of California found that people who score high on authenticity scales show increased activity in the anterior insula, the part of the brain responsible for detecting incongruence between what people say and what they actually feel. Your brain is literally wired differently. You're not being judgmental when you sense fakeness. You're reading energy signatures that most people miss completely. And here's the kicker. Fake people can sense this about you too. They know you see through them, and that's why they often avoid you or try to discredit you. They can't manipulate someone who sees the truth. Think about your friendships for a moment. I bet you have very few close friends, but the ones you have are ride or die, right? That's because you can't do surface-level relationships. You can't do small talk and pretense. You need depth. You need realness. You need soul connection. And that kind of connection is rare. Most people are terrified of being truly seen, but you crave it. You'd rather be alone than surrounded by people wearing masks. Does this resonate with you? Drop a comment and let me know if you've struggled with this your whole life. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your inability to be fake isn't just about social interactions, it extends to every area of your life. You can't stay in jobs that require you to compromise your values. You can't maintain relationships where you have to hide parts of yourself. You can't follow belief systems that don't align with your inner truth. This has probably cost you opportunities, relationships, maybe even financial stability at times. People have probably told you that you're too idealistic, too stubborn, that you need to be more practical and flexible. But you know what? That rigidity, that refusal to bend, that's your superpower. Because while everyone else is bending themselves into pretzels trying to fit into a broken system, you're holding the line. You're showing others that it's possible to live with integrity even when it's hard. The philosopher Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But I'd add to that, the inauthentic life is not worth living either. And you know this in your bones. You'd rather struggle financially while staying true to yourself than sell out for comfort. You'd rather be lonely than surround yourself with fake friends. You'd rather be misunderstood than pretend to be someone you're not. And that, my friend, is the first sign you're one of the chosen ones. Your authenticity is a threat to a world built on lies. And that's exactly why you're needed here. Sign number 2, you thirst for something more. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked around at people living what society calls a successful life? The nice house, the stable job, the nuclear family, the weekend barbecues, and felt absolutely suffocated by the thought of that being your existence? Not because there's anything wrong with those things, but because some part of you knows there's something more, something bigger, something that actually matters in the grand scheme of existence? If so, you're already ahead of 99% of people who never question the script they've been handed. The poet Robert Frost wrote about taking the road less traveled, and that has made all the difference. But let me tell you what he didn't say in that poem. The road less traveled is less traveled for a reason. It's harder, it's lonelier, there are no guideposts, no rest stops, no guarantee you'll even reach a destination. Most people take one look at that road and say, "No thanks, I'll stick with the paved highway where everyone else is going." But not you. You look at that rocky, uncertain path, and something in you says, "That's my road." Even if you're terrified, even if you have no idea where it leads, you know you can't take the safe route. This isn't about being rebellious for the sake of rebellion. This isn't teenage angst or contrarian personality. This is a soul-level knowing that the conventional path will kill something essential inside you. You look at people who've followed the script, who've checked all the boxes society told them to check, and you see the quiet desperation in their eyes. You see the way they've numbed themselves with entertainment, with alcohol, with shopping. with anything to avoid facing the emptiness of a life lived on autopilot. And you think, I'd rather die than become that. Am I right? Comment below if you've ever felt this way. The philosopher Kierkegaard talked about the concept of existential dread, this anxiety that comes from confronting the meaninglessness of conventional existence. Most people bury this dread under layers of distraction and conformity. But chosen ones can't do that. You feel that dread acutely, and instead of running from it, you run toward it. You ask the big questions. Why am I here? What is the meaning of existence? Is there a God? What happens after death? What is consciousness? While everyone else is arguing about politics and sports and celebrity gossip, you're wrestling with the fundamental mysteries of being alive. And let me tell you, that makes you weird to most people. They don't understand why you can't just relax and enjoy life like they do. But here's what they don't understand. You can't enjoy a life built on illusion. You can't find peace in a reality that doesn't align with truth. It would be like trying to build a house on quicksand. Sure, you might get the structure up, but you know it's going to collapse eventually. So what's the point? You need solid ground, and the only solid ground is truth, purpose, meaning, connection to something greater than yourself. That's not a luxury for you, that's a necessity. Without it, you wither. You've probably experienced this times in your life when you tried to fit in, when you tried to want what everyone else wants, and you felt yourself dying inside, right? There's a reason for this. Your soul is ancient. It's been here before. It's learned lessons across lifetimes, and it's not interested in kindergarten-level consciousness anymore. While most people are still learning basic lessons about ego and material attachment, you're ready for graduate-level spiritual work. You're here to transcend, to transform, to evolve consciousness itself. And that means the normal human experience feels painfully limiting to you. It's like being an eagle forced to live in a chicken coop. You're not better than the chickens, you're just meant to soar, and being grounded feels like torture. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But he also knew that most people never take that journey. They live and die as copies of other people's expectations. But you can't do that. Something in you rebels against it. You'd rather risk everything to discover who you really are than play it safe and live as a shadow of your potential. And that thirst, that hunger for something more, that's your soul calling you home. It's reminding you why you came here. Not to accumulate stuff or impress people or tick boxes, but to awaken, to remember, to become a vehicle for something sacred and transformative. Does this speak to you? Let me know in the comments what you're thirsting for in your life right now. Sign number 3. You've been through hell. Here's a hard truth that most spiritual teachers sugarcoat. If you're chosen, your life has probably been really difficult. Not just regular difficult, but why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this kind of difficult? Trauma in childhood, betrayal by people you trusted, health crises, financial devastation, loss that broke you completely. And you've probably wondered, if I'm so special, if I'm chosen by the universe, why has my life been so much harder than everyone else's? Why do I have to suffer when other people seem to glide through life untouched by real pain? Let me tell you why, and this is crucial. Many are called, but few are chosen. The Bible says that, and it's profound. The chosen ones are chosen precisely because they can handle what others can't. You were given these challenges not as punishment, but as preparation. Every trauma you've endured, every betrayal you've survived, every time you were knocked down and somehow found the strength to get back up, you were being forged in fire. You were being transformed from soft metal into a diamond. And diamonds, my friend, are only created under immense pressure. Without that pressure, you'd just be coal. Interesting to look at, maybe, but not particularly valuable or useful. Think about the heroes and spiritual leaders throughout history. Moses spent 40 years wandering in the desert. Buddha had to sit under a tree and face every demon his mind could conjure. Jesus went through crucifixion. Muhammad was rejected by his own people. Joan of Arc was burned at the stake. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. Every single person who changed the world had to first be broken down by the world. Why? Because you can't heal others until you've healed yourself. You can't guide people through darkness until you've navigated it yourself. You can't offer hope to the hopeless until you've been hopeless yourself. The German philosopher Nietzsche said, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." But I'd go further than that. That which nearly destroys us makes us capable of healing others. Your wounds, once healed, become your medicine. The abuse you suffered teaches you compassion for the abused. The addiction you overcame gives you the roadmap to help others overcome theirs. The depression that nearly took you out equips you to be a lifeline for someone standing on that same ledge. See, your pain is never just about you. It's about everyone you'll help once you come through it. And here's something most people don't realize. When you're going through your darkest moments, you're actually doing work for the collective. There's a concept in shamanic traditions called soul retrieval, where the healer goes into the underworld to bring back lost parts of someone's soul. That's what you're doing every time you face your demons. You're not just healing yourself, you're clearing pathways in the collective unconscious. You're making it easier for the next person who faces similar darkness. You're a spiritual pioneer, hacking through the jungle so others can follow a clearer path. How powerful is that? Your suffering has cosmic purpose. But let me be real with you. This doesn't make the suffering hurt less. I'm not going to tell you to just think positive or that everything happens for a reason in some simplistic way. Your pain is real, your trauma is valid, and you have every right to feel angry about what you've been through. What I am saying is this: don't let that pain define you. Don't let it make you bitter or broken. Use it, alchemize it, transform it into wisdom, into compassion, into medicine for others. That's the choice you have. You can't change what happened to you, but you can change what you do with it. And if you're still here, if you're still fighting, if you haven't given up despite everything you've been through, that proves you're chosen. Because chosen ones don't quit. We get knocked down, we cry, we rage, we break, but we don't stay down. Something in us always gets back up. I want you to pause for a moment and think about everything you've survived. Really think about it. Now ask yourself, how am I even still standing after all that? The answer is simple. You're stronger than you know. You're more resilient than you give yourself credit for. And you're being prepared for a mission that requires exactly the kind of strength you've developed through your struggles. Your hardships weren't random bad luck. They were strategic preparation. Comment below and tell me what you've overcome. Let's honor the warriors in this community. Sign number 4. You quest for truth above all else. Most people are comfortable living in illusion. They believe what they're told. They follow the crowd. They accept the reality that's been programmed into them since childhood. They never question whether the story they've been sold is actually true. But not you. Ever since you were young, you've been the one asking why. Why do we do things this way? Why do people believe this? Why is this considered normal? Who decided these rules? And most importantly, What if everything we've been taught is wrong? This has probably gotten you in trouble more times than you can count. As a child, you were probably labeled difficult or rebellious because you questioned authority. Teachers didn't like you because you wouldn't just accept information. You wanted to understand it, test it, see if it held up under scrutiny. Your parents might have been frustrated because you wouldn't blindly follow family traditions or religious teachings without understanding why they made sense. And as an adult, you've probably been called cynical, negative, or a conspiracy theorist just because you don't take things at face value. But here's the truth. You're not cynical. You're discerning. There's a huge difference. Socrates, who I mentioned earlier, was executed by the Athenian state for asking too many questions. They called it corrupting the youth, but really, he was just doing what you do, seeking truth regardless of how uncomfortable that truth might be. He famously said, "I know that I know nothing." And that's the mark of a true seeker. The more you learn, the more you realize how little you actually know, and how much of what society accepts as truth is actually just agreed upon fiction. Money has value because we all agree it does. Countries exist because we all agree they do. Time is a construct we all agreed to follow. These things aren't objectively real. They're consensus reality. And you've always sensed that. Your quest for truth isn't just intellectual curiosity, it's spiritual necessity. You need to understand how reality actually works, because you can feel that something is off about the mainstream narrative. You've probably gone down countless rabbit holes researching everything from ancient civilizations to quantum physics, to consciousness studies, to alternative history. While other people are watching sitcoms and sports, you're reading books that blow your mind open. You're listening to podcasts with philosophers and scientists and mystics. You're seeking, always seeking, because you know there's more to this reality than what we can see with our physical eyes. But here's where it gets really interesting. The more truth you discover, the lonelier you become. Because you start to see how deeply asleep most people are. You see how they're living in a kind of collective trance, going through the motions, repeating the same patterns, never questioning the system that's been built around them. And when you try to share what you've learned, when you try to wake people up, they don't want to hear it. They call you crazy. They tell you to stop overthinking. They say ignorance is bliss. And you know what? For them, maybe it is. Maybe most people are happier not knowing the truth. But you can't unknow what you know. Once you've seen behind the curtain, you can't go back to believing the show is real. This is the burden of the truth seeker. Knowledge brings responsibility. Once you understand how things really work, you can't participate in the illusion with the same innocence. You can't just go along to get along. You become, as they say, in the world, but not of it. You're here, you're participating in human society, but you're not bought into it the way most people are. You see the matrix, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. Does this resonate? Have you felt this isolation that comes from seeing too much? Let me know in the comments. And here's another layer to this. Your quest for truth isn't just about external reality. It's about internal reality too. You're not just trying to figure out how the world works. You're trying to figure out who you are at the deepest level. You meditate, you journal, you do shadow work, you explore your psyche with the same intensity that you explore outer knowledge. Because you understand what Socrates meant when he said, "Know thyself." You can't truly understand the universe until you understand yourself. And you can't truly understand yourself until you're willing to look at all of it. The light and the shadow, the beauty and the ugly, the divine and the human. This inner quest is often harder than the outer one. It's easier to read about enlightenment than to actually sit with your own darkness. It's easier to theorize about consciousness than to actually expand your own. It's easier to talk about truth than to live it. But you're willing to do the hard work because living a lie, even a comfortable lie, feels worse than facing uncomfortable truth. And that willingness to go deep, to question everything including yourself, that's the mark of a chosen one. Because the chosen ones aren't here to maintain the status quo, we're here to shatter it and rebuild something better. And that starts with shattering our own illusions about ourselves. Sign number 5. You're the black sheep of your family. Let's talk about something painful that many of you have experienced. You don't fit with your family. Not in small ways, in fundamental ways. It's like you were born into the wrong tribe, raised by people who can't understand you no matter how hard they try. You might have even wondered if you were switched at birth or adopted because being related to these people makes so little sense. Your values are different, your interests are different. The way you see the world is completely different. When they zig, you zag. When they think one way, you think the opposite. And it's not that you're trying to be difficult or rebellious, it's just that you genuinely see things differently. This has probably caused a lot of pain in your life. Family is supposed to be where you belong, where you're accepted unconditionally, where you can be yourself. But for you, family might be the place where you feel most like an outsider. They don't get your spiritual interests. They think your quest for meaning is silly. They can't understand why you can't just be normal like everyone else. Maybe your family is very religious and you're not. Or maybe they're not religious at all and you're deeply spiritual. Maybe they're very conservative and you're liberal, or vice versa. Maybe they value money and status above all else and you couldn't care less about those things. Whatever the specifics, there's a fundamental mismatch between who you are and who they are. The term black sheep comes from the idea that in a flock of white sheep, a black one stands out as obviously different. And that's been your experience, hasn't it? You've always stood out in your family, not necessarily in a good way from their perspective. You're the weird one, the sensitive one, the one who thinks too much, the one who's always questioning things, the one who can't just go along with family tradition. And this has probably led to a lot of conflict, a lot of misunderstanding, maybe even rejection or estrangement. But here's what you need to understand. Being the black sheep is actually a blessing, even though it doesn't feel like one. It means you're not bound by generational patterns and limiting beliefs that have been passed down through your family line. Every family has certain patterns, certain ways of thinking, certain traumas that get repeated generation after generation. Maybe it's addiction. Maybe it's relationship dysfunction. Maybe it's scarcity mindset around money. Maybe it's religious dogma. Maybe it's emotional suppression. Whatever it is, these patterns keep getting repeated because no one questions them. They just accept that this is how our family does things. But then you come along and you say, wait, this doesn't make sense. Why are we doing it this way? Is there a better way? And boom, you've just become the family scapegoat. Because by questioning the pattern, you're threatening the family's entire identity. You're holding up a mirror and showing them their dysfunction. And most people don't want to see that. So instead of looking at the mirror, they attack the person holding it. They make you wrong for being different. They try to shame you back into conformity. They tell you there's something wrong with you for not fitting in. But here's the truth. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not defective or broken. You're a pattern breaker. You're here to stop the intergenerational cycle. You're here to heal what your ancestors couldn't heal. That's a huge spiritual assignment, and it requires you to be different from your family. If you were just like them, you couldn't do this work. You have to stand outside the system to see it clearly enough to change it. Does this make sense? Are you the pattern breaker in your family? Comment below and tell me what pattern you're here to break. And here's something beautiful that happens when you embrace being the black sheep. You give permission to other black sheep in other families to do the same. You show them that it's okay to be different, that it's okay to question, that it's okay to forge your own path even if your family doesn't understand. You become an example of authenticity in a world that pressures people to conform. And that, my friend, is powerful beyond measure. Your family might never appreciate what you're doing. They might never understand why you are the way you are. But that's okay. You're not here to get their approval. You're here to be yourself fully and to heal what needs healing. And sometimes that means walking alone for a while. The poet Rumi said, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray." Your family might not understand what pulls you, but trust it anyway. Trust that voice inside that tells you you're different for a reason. Trust that your uniqueness is not a flaw, but a feature. Trust that being the black sheep is actually your superpower, because it means you can't be domesticated into mediocrity like everyone else. You're wild, you're free, you're untamable, and that's exactly what this world needs more of. Sign number 6. You're a good person despite everything. Here's something remarkable about you. Despite all the pain you've been through, despite all the times you've been hurt, betrayed, taken advantage of, used, and discarded, you're still kind. You're still compassionate. You're still willing to help others. You haven't become bitter or cynical or cold. You haven't shut down your heart to protect yourself from more pain. And honestly, the fact that you're still capable of love and goodness after everything you've been through is nothing short of miraculous. Most people who've been through what you've been through would have hardened their hearts. They would have said, "Screw everyone. I'm only looking out for myself from now on." They would have become selfish, guarded, closed off. But not you. You keep your heart open even though it's been broken multiple times. You keep giving even though people have taken advantage of your generosity. You keep trusting even though you've been betrayed. Why? Because that's who you are at your core. Goodness isn't something you do. It's something you are. It's woven into the fabric of your soul. The philosopher Kant talked about the categorical imperative, the idea that we should act according to principles that we'd want everyone to follow. You live this way naturally. You treat people how you want to be treated, not because it's a rule you're following, but because you genuinely want good things for others. You feel other people's pain, almost as if it were your own. When you see someone suffering, something in you wants to help, wants to ease their burden, wants to make things better. This isn't weakness. This is advanced spiritual development. This is what it looks like to have an activated heart chakra, to be living from a place of unconditional love. But let's be honest, this quality has probably been exploited. People have seen your goodness and taken advantage of it. Users and takers have gravitated toward you because they know you'll give them what they want. Narcissists have targeted you because your empathy makes you easy to manipulate. Energy vampires have drained you because you have so much light to give. And each time this happens, you probably think, "Why do I keep attracting these people? What's wrong with me?" But here's what you need to understand. Nothing is wrong with you. The problem isn't your goodness. The problem is that you haven't learned to protect your goodness with healthy boundaries. Being a good person doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It doesn't mean giving until you're empty. True goodness includes having boundaries, saying no when something doesn't serve you, protecting your energy from people who would drain it. This is something many chosen ones have to learn the hard way. We think that being spiritual or chosen means always being nice, always being available, always putting others first. But that's not true. Even Jesus flipped tables in the temple when he saw corruption. Even Buddha set boundaries with people who weren't serious about the path. Even Mother Teresa had limits to what she could give. You are allowed to be discerning about who you give your energy to. You are allowed to distance yourself from people who drain you. You are allowed to prioritize your own well-being. In fact, you must do these things if you want to continue being a force for good in the world. Because here's the thing, if you give everything away, if you let people take and take and take until you have nothing left, then you can't help anyone. You'll burn out, you'll become resentful, you'll lose that light that makes you who you are. And the world needs your light, so you have to protect it. Think of yourself as a candle. Your purpose is to shine and help others find their way in the darkness. But if you let the wind blow you out, or if you melt yourself down trying to light every other candle you meet, you won't be able to fulfill that purpose. You have to shield your flame carefully, only sharing your light with those who truly need it and will use it well, not with those who just want to extinguish it. Does this make sense? Have you struggled with boundaries? Let me know in the comments how you're learning to protect your goodness while staying open-hearted. And here's the beautiful thing. When you learn to combine your natural goodness with wisdom and boundaries, you become incredibly powerful. You become someone who can truly change lives because you're giving from overflow rather than from depletion. You're helping from a place of strength rather than from a place of pleasing or people-pleasing or codependency. Your goodness becomes sustainable, and that's when you can really make a difference. So don't let anyone tell you that your kindness is weakness. It's your strength. Just make sure you're wielding it wisely. Sign number 7. You have an inner knowing you can't shake. There's something you know deep in your bones that you can't explain to anyone else. You know you're here for something important. You know you have a mission, even if you don't fully understand what it is yet. You know you're different. You know you see things others don't. You know there's something you're supposed to do with this life that goes beyond just surviving and accumulating stuff. This knowing has been with you for as long as you can remember. Maybe not consciously when you were very young, but it was there, this sense that you're not just a regular person living a regular life. Some people call this the call. Others call it your purpose or your destiny or your dharma. Whatever you call it, it's that persistent inner voice that won't let you settle for mediocrity. It's that feeling that wakes you up at 3 in the morning with ideas and insights. It's that restlessness you feel when you're doing something that doesn't align with why you're really here. It's that excitement you feel when you're moving in the right direction, even if it's scary. This inner knowing is your soul speaking to you, reminding you of what you agreed to before you came here. You see, chosen ones don't just randomly get chosen. Your soul volunteered for this assignment. Before you incarnated into this body, your soul knew what it was signing up for. It knew the challenges you'd face, the hardships you'd endure, the loneliness you'd experience. And it said yes anyway, because your soul understood the importance of the mission. Your human self might have forgotten that agreement, but your soul remembers. And that's what the inner knowing is. It's your soul trying to remind your human self why you're really here. But here's where it gets tricky. Your human self is scared. Your ego doesn't want to follow the call because the call usually requires you to do things that feel uncomfortable or risky. Leave the secure job, end the safe relationship, move to a new place, start a business, create art, speak your truth. Whatever your specific call is, it probably requires you to step outside your comfort zone in a major way. And your ego is designed to keep you safe and comfortable, so it resists. It says, "That's crazy. That's impractical. That's too risky. You can't do that. People will think you're insane. You'll fail. You'll lose everything." All these fear-based thoughts flood in, trying to talk you out of following the call. And you know what? Sometimes you listen to those fears. Sometimes you push down the inner knowing and try to live a normal life. Maybe you've tried this already. Maybe you've spent years trying to ignore the call, trying to be like everyone else, trying to fit into the conventional path. But it doesn't work, does it? That knowing keeps coming back. It won't leave you alone. It's like a splinter in your mind, to quote The Matrix, irritating you, bothering you, not letting you rest until you finally listen. And eventually, if you keep ignoring it, life will force you to listen. You'll have a crisis, a breakdown, a dark night of the soul that strips away everything you thought you needed and leaves you face to face with your truth. The German philosopher Nietzsche talked about the eternal recurrence, the idea that we're doomed to repeat the same lessons over and over until we finally learn them. That's what happens when you ignore the inner knowing. The same situations keep showing up. The same dissatisfaction keeps arising. The same sense that something is missing keeps haunting you. Because your soul won't let you off the hook. It will keep creating circumstances that force you to confront what you're avoiding. Not to punish you, but to wake you up. So here's my question for you. What is your inner knowing telling you? What is that voice inside saying that you've been trying to ignore? What are you being called to do that scares you? I want you to really sit with this question because your answer is important. Your inner knowing is your compass, and if you're not following it, you're lost, no matter how successful you look on paper. Comment below and share what your inner knowing is calling you toward. Let's hold each other accountable to actually following the call. And let me tell you something else about this inner knowing. The more you listen to it, the stronger it gets. The more you ignore it, the quieter it becomes. It's like a muscle. When you trust it and act on it, you develop a stronger and stronger connection to your soul's guidance. But when you repeatedly dismiss it, that connection weakens. This is why some people reach old age and feel like they wasted their life. They spent decades ignoring their inner knowing, and eventually they couldn't hear it anymore. Don't let that be you. Listen now while you can still hear it clearly. Your soul is trying to show you the way, but you have to be brave enough to follow. Sign number 8. People dislike you for no apparent reason. This is one of the most confusing and painful experiences that chosen ones go through. You walk into a room and you can feel it, someone dislikes you, and you haven't even done anything. You haven't spoken to them, you haven't wronged them, you literally just existed in their presence, and they already have a problem with you. This has probably happened countless times throughout your life. Co-workers who target you for no reason, family members who are inexplicably cold to you, acquaintances who spread rumors about you, strangers who give you dirty looks. And you're left thinking, what did I do? Why do people hate me when I'm actually a good person? Here's the truth, and this might be hard to hear at first. It's not about you, it's about them. More specifically, it's about what you represent to them. You see, the light that you carry, the authenticity that radiates from you, the spiritual frequency that you operate on, it makes unconscious people extremely uncomfortable. It's like you're holding up a mirror to their soul, and they don't like what they see reflected back. Your presence alone reminds them of everything they're not being, everything they're avoiding, everything they've compromised on. And instead of doing the inner work to face that, they project their discomfort onto you. They make you the problem instead of looking at themselves. Carl Jung called this shadow projection. When people haven't integrated their own shadow, when they haven't faced their own darkness, they see it in others instead. So the person who judges you for being weird is actually uncomfortable with their own suppressed uniqueness. The person who calls you too sensitive is actually afraid of their own buried emotions. The person who mocks your spiritual interests is actually terrified of confronting their own existential questions. They're not really reacting to you. They're reacting to what you trigger in them. You're the screen they're projecting their unresolved issues onto. And here's what makes this even more challenging. As you grow spiritually, as you do more inner work and raise your vibration, this phenomenon intensifies. Your light gets brighter. which means it casts even more obvious shadows. People who are deeply asleep spiritually will find your presence almost intolerable. They might not even understand why. They'll just know that being around you makes them feel weird or uncomfortable or judged, even though you're not judging them at all. It's their own conscience making them uncomfortable, but they'll blame you for it. This is why spiritual teachers throughout history have been persecuted. Jesus was crucified. Socrates was executed. Countless mystics and prophets were killed or exiled. Why? Because they held up mirrors that society didn't want to look into. They spoke truths that people didn't want to hear. They embodied a level of consciousness that threatened the comfortable unconsciousness of the masses. And on a much smaller scale, you're doing the same thing. You're not trying to threaten anyone, you're just being yourself. But your authentic self is so different from what most people are that it creates discomfort. So, what do you do with this? First, stop taking it personally. I know that's easier said than done, but it's crucial. When someone dislikes you for no reason, remind yourself that it's not about you. They're fighting their own inner battles, and you just happen to be convenient scapegoat. Second, don't dim your light to make others comfortable. I cannot stress this enough. The world doesn't need you to play small. It needs you to shine brightly, even if that makes some people uncomfortable. Your job is not to manage other people's triggers. Your job is to be authentically you. Third, surround yourself with people who appreciate your light instead of resenting it. These people exist, I promise you. Other chosen ones, other awakened souls, other truth seekers. When you find your tribe, when you connect with people who get you, you'll realize that the opinions of unconscious people don't matter nearly as much as you thought they did. And finally, send love to the people who dislike you. This doesn't mean letting them abuse you or staying in toxic situations. It means recognizing that they're suffering, they're trapped in unconsciousness, and they deserve compassion even if they can't give you any. There's a Buddhist practice called metta, or loving kindness meditation, where you send well wishes even to people who have hurt you. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free from suffering. This isn't about them. It's about you. It's about not letting their negativity poison your heart. It's about maintaining your frequency regardless of what's happening around you. Because here's the thing. If you react to their dislike with anger or resentment, you lower your vibration to match theirs. But if you respond with compassion and understanding, you maintain your light, and maybe, just maybe, you plant a seed in them that will grow later. Have you experienced this kind of unexplained dislike? Tell me in the comments how you deal with it. Let me share something that might give you perspective. There's a concept in physics called resonance. Objects vibrate at certain frequencies, and when two objects are vibrating at very different frequencies, there's dissonance, there's discomfort, there's incompatibility. But when two objects are vibrating at the same frequency, they resonate, they harmonize, they amplify each other. This is exactly what's happening in your relationships. People who are vibrating at a low frequency experience dissonance when they encounter your high frequency. It literally feels uncomfortable to them on an energetic level. But people who are vibrating at a similar frequency to yours experience resonance. Being around you feels good, feels right, feels like coming home. So the dislike you experience from certain people is actually confirmation that you're doing something right. You're not lowering your frequency to fit in, you're maintaining your authentic vibration even when it costs you popularity. And that's admirable. That's what chosen ones do. We don't adjust ourselves to make everyone comfortable. We stay true to who we are and trust that the right people will find us. The wrong people will dislike us, and that's okay. Their dislike is actually a filter, helping us identify who our real tribe is and who isn't meant to be in our inner circle. Sign number 9. You believe in a much higher power. Here's the final sign, and it might be the most important one. You believe in something greater than yourself. Whether you call it God, the universe, source, consciousness, the divine, the all, or something else entirely, you know that there's an intelligence that's bigger than the human mind can comprehend. You know that this physical reality is not all there is. You know that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. This isn't just intellectual belief for you. This is a knowing that comes from direct experience, from moments of connection, from synchronicities too precise to be coincidence, from prayers that were answered in impossible ways. Unlike many people in our modern materialistic culture who've dismissed spirituality as primitive superstition, you've actually explored it deeply. You don't just accept religious dogma without question, but you also don't throw the baby out with the bathwater by rejecting all spiritual wisdom. You're discerning. You take what resonates and leave what doesn't. You've probably studied multiple spiritual traditions, finding truth in all of them while not being confined by any single one. You understand that all the great spiritual teachings are pointing to the same fundamental truths, just using different language and metaphors. This connection to a higher power is what sustains you through difficult times. When everything in your human life is falling apart, when you feel alone and afraid and overwhelmed, you have something to fall back on. You pray, you meditate, you surrender to the divine plan. You trust that there's a bigger picture you can't see yet. This faith, this trust, this connection, it's your anchor. It's what keeps you from being swept away by the storms of life. Other people might wonder how you keep going after everything you've been through. And the answer is this: you're not doing it alone. You have help from higher dimensions, from guides, from angels, from the universe itself. And here's something beautiful. Because you're connected to this higher power, because you're aligned with divine will, you're protected. Not in the sense that nothing bad will ever happen to you. Obviously, challenging things still occur. But protected in the sense that you're being guided, that you're exactly where you need to be for your soul's evolution, that nothing is random or meaningless. Every experience, good or bad, is part of your spiritual curriculum. And when you really understand this, when you really feel this, it changes everything. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start being a student of life. The Indian spiritual teacher Ramana Maharshi said, "Your own self-realization is the greatest service you can render the world." This is what you're doing through your connection to higher power. You're not just improving your own life, you're raising the collective consciousness. Every time you choose love over fear, every time you trust divine timing instead of forcing things, every time you see the sacred in the ordinary, you're contributing to the awakening of humanity. You're a light worker, and your work is happening whether you realize it or not. Now, let me clarify something important. Being connected to a higher power doesn't mean you're weak or dependent or avoiding personal responsibility. Some people misunderstand spirituality as passivity, as just waiting for God to fix everything while you do nothing. That's not what I'm talking about. True spiritual connection actually empowers you. It gives you the courage to take inspired action, the wisdom to know what action to take, and the faith to keep going when the logical mind would give up. You're a co-creator with the divine, not a passive recipient. You do your part and trust that the universe will do its part. This partnership with the divine is what makes you unstoppable. You have access to guidance and resources that most people don't even know exist. You have intuition that leads you to the right places at the right times. You have synchronicities that open doors in impossible ways. You have a sense of being supported by forces beyond the physical realm. And when you're operating from this place, when you're aligned with your soul's purpose and connected to the divine flow, magic happens. Things that seemed impossible become possible. Solutions appear when you need them. The right people show up at the right moment. This isn't luck. This is how life works when you're living in alignment. But I want to be honest with you about something. This connection to higher power, it requires cultivation. It's not a one-time thing where you have a spiritual awakening and then you're set forever. It's a daily practice. You have to maintain your connection through meditation, through prayer, through being in nature, through creative expression, through acts of service, through whatever practices keep you aligned. If you neglect your spiritual practice, that connection weakens. The noise of the world drowns out the whisper of the divine. And then you find yourself feeling lost, disconnected, alone. So my question for you is, what are you doing daily to maintain your connection to the higher power? Comment below and share your practices. Let's inspire each other. And here's the thing about being a chosen one who's connected to higher power. You have a responsibility. You're not chosen so you can just have a nice life for yourself. You're chosen to be of service. You're chosen to help others wake up. You're chosen to hold light in dark places. You're chosen to be a channel for divine love to flow through into this world. That's a big responsibility, and honestly, it can feel overwhelming sometimes. There will be days when you think, I didn't sign up for this. This is too much. I just want a normal life. And that's okay. You're allowed to feel that way. You're human. But then you remember why you're here. You remember that your soul did sign up for this, and you find the strength to keep going. The Christian mystic Meister Eckhart said, "The soul is kissed by God in its innermost regions." This is what you're experiencing as a chosen one. You're not just reading about spirituality or philosophizing about God. You're having direct experiences of the divine. You're being kissed by God in your innermost regions, and once you've felt that, once you know that love, that presence, that infinite intelligence, you can never go back to seeing the world as random or meaningless. You know there's a plan. You know there's purpose. You know you're part of something magnificent. And that knowing carries you through everything. The conclusion? You are not alone. So we've covered the 9 signs. You cannot be fake. You thirst for something more. You've been through hell. You quest for truth. You're the black sheep. You're a good person despite everything. You have an inner knowing. People dislike you for no reason. And you believe in a higher power. If you resonated with most or all of these signs, then yes, you are one of the chosen ones. And I want you to understand what that really means. Being chosen is not about being better than anyone else. It's not about ego or feeling special in a superficial way. Being chosen means you've been selected for a mission to raise consciousness, to heal collective wounds, to be a light in the darkness. It means your soul agreed to come here during this specific time in human history to help with the great awakening that's happening on this planet. You're here to break cycles, to shatter illusions, to embody truth, to love fiercely, to create change. That's what being chosen means, and it's both a blessing and a burden. The path of the chosen one is not easy. Nobody promised you it would be. In fact, you were probably warned before you incarnated that this would be one of the most challenging lifetimes you'd ever experience. But you came anyway, because you're brave, because you're committed to the evolution of consciousness, because you love humanity enough to endure difficulty for its sake. And I want to honor that. I want to acknowledge the courage it takes to walk this path. You didn't choose the easy road, you chose the meaningful one, and that's admirable beyond words. But here's what I also want you to know. You are not alone. Even when you feel isolated, even when nobody in your physical reality understands you, you are connected to a global network of chosen ones who are going through the exact same thing. We are all over the world, feeling the same feelings, asking the same questions, facing the same challenges. We are your soul family, and even though we may never meet in person, we're connected on a level that transcends physical proximity. Right now, as you watch this video, there are thousands of other chosen ones watching too, nodding their heads, feeling seen and understood, realizing they're not crazy or alone. That's the power of recognizing your tribe. And beyond your human soul family, you have support from non-physical realms. You have spirit guides, you have angels, you have ancestors, you have higher dimensional beings who are cheering you on and helping you in ways you can't always perceive. You are so loved, so supported, so guided. You are never truly alone, even when it feels that way. And when you start to really feel that support, when you open yourself to receiving help from both physical and non-physical sources, your life transforms. Burdens become lighter, paths become clearer, miracles become more frequent. So what do you do now with this information? First, stop fighting your nature. Stop trying to be normal. Stop apologizing for being different. Embrace who you are fully. You are a chosen one, and that's something to be proud of, not ashamed of. Second, find your tribe. Seek out other awakened souls, other truth seekers, other light workers. You need community. You need people who get you. You need mirrors who reflect your light back to you. Third, do the work. Your mission requires you to be healed, to be conscious, to be grounded. So commit to your spiritual practice, do your shadow work, heal your trauma, integrate your lessons. The world needs you at your best, not at your most broken. Fourth, trust the process. Your life might not make sense right now. You might feel lost or confused about your specific purpose, but trust that you're being guided. Trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Trust that when you're ready, your mission will become clear. And finally, shine your light unapologetically. Stop dimming yourself to make others comfortable. Stop hiding your gifts because you're afraid of judgment. Stop playing small because it feels safer. The world needs you to be big, to be bright, to be bold. Your light is not just for you. It's for everyone whose path you'll illuminate. I want to end with this. The fact that you found this video, the fact that you watched all the way to the end, the fact that these signs resonated with you, that's not a coincidence. The universe guided you here because you needed to hear this message. You needed to be reminded of who you are and why you're here. You needed to know that you're not crazy, you're not alone, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So take this as your confirmation. You are chosen, you are important, you matter, and the world needs exactly what you have to offer. Now here's what I want you to do. Subscribe to Attraction Magnet if you haven't already, because we're building a community of awakened souls here, and you belong with us. Hit that like button to help this message reach other chosen ones who need to hear it. And drop a comment telling me which sign resonated with you the most. I read every single comment, and I want to hear your story. I want to know what you're going through, what you're learning, what you're becoming. Let's support each other on this journey. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone who's been feeling lost or alone or different their whole life, share this video with them. You might be the messenger they've been waiting for. You might be the confirmation they needed to stop doubting themselves and start embracing their path. That's how we change the world, one awakened soul at a time, supporting each other, lifting each other up, reminding each other why we're really here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. Thank you for having the courage to walk this path. I see you, I honor you, and I'm grateful that our paths have crossed in this digital space. Until the next video, keep shining your light, keep trusting your journey, and keep being the incredible chosen one that you are. You've got this, and we're all in this together. Much love to you, beautiful soul.